Horizon Shift 81 is a top-down 2D shmup in which you take control of a tiny rocket that's moving across a line in the middle of the screen so that you can shoot enemies from the top and the bottom. This is a unique way to change up the classic formula while also keeping it to its old school roots. But does that formula hold up in 2018? Let's find out. As I stated before, Horizon Shift 81 is a very old school arcade game. You go through the motions of those games. You're going level by level, fighting crazy aliens coming at you from everywhere. You're shooting bullets, you're getting power-ups in order to change what bullet types you have, whether it be rockets, flamethrowers, bombs that blow up everything on screen. You'll get the occasional boss fight that changes the formula, and you'll even get to some levels where your line in the middle of the screen shifts to different parts of the screen in order to kinda switch things up here and there. I did feel like though that wasn't enough to sustain me. I felt like I was doing the same thing. I also thought the difficulty spiked a bit too much, and it was a little frustrating because at least in 2D shmups usually you're just dealing with things coming at you from one direction, but when you have to deal with things coming at you from the top and the bottom of the screen and things breaking your line in the middle, it can get a little frustrating. That being said, the game does have some really cool enemy types and boss battles that are very throwbacky to these old school games. Some feel like a brick breaker game where you're shooting bullets into different bricks to get to the boss, and some just take the old school giant alien approach. The modes offered in the game aren't really that different from each other. There are ways to tweak the formula, such as making things faster, changing the timer, changing the amount of lives you have, so nothing really special comes out of it. You have a lot of filters and options you can choose, such as retro, screen look, changing how the soundtrack looks, the borders, etc., so nothing too major on that front. And that's my biggest gripe with this game, is it feels a little too retro. And I understand that's what they're going for, but I feel like in 2018, when the shmup genre isn't really at its highest peak, you need to do a little more to revitalize that. I don't like how tiny the screen is in the middle. I don't like how the difficulty spikes so hard, just like an arcade game. The only reason arcade games were that insanely difficult was because they wanted you to keep putting a quarter in, whereas in modern times it doesn't work. Another issue I had was that I felt like the soundtrack got stale after a while. I felt like the gameplay loop got a little too repetitive and nothing really kept me hooked. That being said, the gameplay does still feel good, and if you're really looking for a cheap 2D shmup on the Switch, this could be your option if you're looking for that arcade feeling. But just don't expect something that's going to bring you into the genre or something that you're really going to fall in love with, because this is kind of just tweaking the formula a little bit on something that's been dead for a while, and maybe for good reason. This is why I'm going to give this game 3 out of 5 stars on the scale. I don't think it's doing too much to elevate the genre, but I don't think it's a bad game. I think it's fine for what it's doing, but it's not the best at doing it or even recreating that retro feeling.